I want you both to listen to me, okay? Listen good. I know why you're here, so don't BS a BSer, okay? Your presence here, court-ordered.
Why did you put presence in quotes? You implying that we're not here?
You know, one call to the judge from me, and you are in the slammer like MC Hammer.
Did MC Hammer go to prison?
Yes, he did. Or he came extremely close. Certain he filed for bankruptcy, so don't BS me right now, okay?
I don't understand. How are we BSing you?
Exactly. I'm BS proof. There's a couple of timesheets. I want your little buddy's parents to sign them after each outing, okay? And that way I can use my BS fly swatter to swat away the flies. That is your BS.
Welcome to the Reindl Report.
Hey, here's a hot take for you. Steph Curry, most overrated basketball player I've ever seen.
A podcast out of San Diego, California that rewrites the definition of mediocrity.
Yeah, and I don't trust anyone that calls a hot dog a sandwich. Are you crazy?
Are you stupid or something?
And I'll tell you another thing. You know what? I think pineapples do belong on pizza.
Honestly, as stupid as stupid does.
I think watching pitchers try to hit in baseball is one of the worst things in all of sports.
Oh my God, Paul, you make me so mad sometimes.
And I don't want to hear any of this 6-0 in the finals. LeBron James will retire as the GOAT.
Shut the up! Now, here's your host, Paul Reindl.
What's up? What's up? It's time for another podcast, episode 54. This is the Reindl Report. I am Paul Reindl, host of said Reindl Report. This is a sports podcast based out of San Diego, California, and that was the clip I was looking for earlier on my last podcast. If you heard episode 53, I brought up that movie clip from Role Models where Jane Lynch says, you can't BS a BSer. And I kind of tied that in. It ended up being the title of the last podcast. And I kind of tied that into the NFL. Look, I can BS with the best of them, right? You can't BS me. I'm gonna swat away the flies. That is your BS. When you try to tell me one thing when you mean another, I mean, come on, just stop it. Just shoot me straight. All right? Don't tell me Ezekiel Elliott got to play on Sunday night because of the timing of the announcement regarding his suspension. No, he was playing on Sunday night because Jerry Jones put in a call to the NFL and said, look, NBC, Sunday night football, Carrie Underwood, come on. Now, turns out there's a whole bunch of legal issues surrounding the Ezekiel Elliott case that I am just not smart enough nor qualified enough to dive into. Maybe if I can get a sports attorney onto the podcast, he can sort of clear things up there, but it does look like it's going to be something similar to Deflategate. And you know how Tom Brady, they appealed it and he got to play the whole year, and then it played out during the off season, and then he got suspended for 4 games. It looks like Zeke is going to play, probably going to play the entire season, and then something will happen in the off season, whether or not he still gets suspended, whether it gets reduced, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But so NFL Week 1, it has come and gone by the time this podcast has been recorded. This podcast being recorded on September 12th. That's a Tuesday. And, I talked about it last week. I'm the NFL's bitch. I have no problem saying that. I mean, I have a big problem admitting it, but I guess I'm man enough at least to admit it. I watched the NFL, and up until Monday, I didn't really feel dirty about it. Now, by the time Monday Night Football, in particularly the second game of Monday Night Football's broadcast rolled around, I felt disgusting. I felt just violated. I needed to take a shower. I was not happy with myself. I watched a lot of football over the weekend. College football was incredible. I've got a bunch of thoughts on what's going on in the college football world. I will be following college football, I think, more than I have in the past, and certainly more than the NFL, which has just not been the situation for me. So it's been NFL 1, college football 2. Whereas in like basketball terms, it's been college basketball 1 and then the NBA 2. But I see it kind of flip-flopping now when it comes to football. I'm going to be paying more attention to college football because it's not corrupt. They don't try to BS a BSer, But man, I watched a lot of college football. I was following my fantasy team. I won. That's how I'd like to start the podcast, by telling you about my fantasy football team, telling you which players I played and how smart I was. Just kidding. Not going to be that guy. Okay? Nobody likes that guy. Even though everybody plays fantasy football, most people play fantasy football. Even people in your office that don't really know what's going on, they play fantasy football. They got an office pool, an office league going, okay? A lot of people play it, but you don't want to be that guy. Nobody cares about your fantasy football team. Nobody cares. You only care about your team. That's all that matters. Shoot your shot. Talk your trash if you win. But keep it in the league. Nobody cares. I'm not, do you really want me to talk about how I played Tyreek Hill and he had a great game on Thursday night against the Patriots? No, you don't care because it's not your fantasy football team that you're talking about. So that was just a joke. I'm not starting there, but I guess I have to start with the Chargers. And, it didn't really... I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the Chargers this season, to be honest. I mean, as much as I say I hate the NFL and I hate what they did to us and I hate Dean Spanos and I think that franchise is a joke and all of that is true. And then Sunday rolls around and I find myself watching football all day. So I guess I'm a hypocrite in that sense. And I wish I wasn't, but I am. And my guess is if you are listening and you felt similar about the Chargers leaving, you might have watched a little bit of football. But Monday night rolls around and look, why did I watch the Chargers? It's a simple fix. It's a simple solution. If you say nobody cares about the Chargers, you want to stick it to the Chargers, then don't watch. Don't consume their product because that's how they win. I understand the concept of hate watching, but if you're hate watching to stick it to them, they don't care. They only care about the second word, watching. Did you watch the broadcast? That's all that matters to the Chargers. So it wasn't even so much hate watching. It was just watching just to watch. I watched the first half and then it was boring. I just didn't care. Normally, if the Chargers are on Monday Night Football especially, I'm watching that game. I'm going to watch that broadcast. This is obviously in years prior. It was about halftime. I went into my evening routine. It was a 7:30 kickoff. I mean, it was a late kickoff. So, me having to wake up, that alarm going off at 3:10 in the morning, that comes pretty quickly. So about halftime, I start my evening routine. I threw something up on Netflix and just kind of dozed off and fell asleep. And so I wake up and I'm in that, zombie mode where you're like half asleep, half awake, your eyes hurt. I don't know when the last time you woke up at 3 a.m. was, but it's no fun. Poor me. I know, woe is me. But I open up my phone and I'm scrolling through Twitter and I'm just seeing what did I miss, what happened. And, I had a lot of trouble this morning waking up Tuesday morning and trying to find out which was funnier. Seeing that the Chargers once again lost in dramatic fashion, or seeing why Ted Cruz was trending on Twitter. And if you don't know what I'm talking about there, look it up. I'm just not gonna go there. But same old Chargers. Look, different city, same team. This was not I didn't coin that phrase. I saw that on ESPN, okay, on SportsCenter. They come back with a big old graphic with a lightning bolt that says same, different city, same Chargers. You could sub in the word there, different coach, same Chargers, different coordinator, same Chargers. It's just, They really have made losing an art form. The only difference between this game and last year, and I think they're like 1-7 in their last game. What was it? Their last 8 games that come down to the wire or something like that. They've lost a stupid amount of games by 3 points or less. They just cannot close it out. And that was their problem last year, was they couldn't close out a game. They had a big lead, and then a team they'd give up a late fourth quarter comeback by the other team, and of course, it would come with a blocked field goal or pick six or a fumble. I mean, you name it, the Chargers lost that way. And so this one was a little bit different. They fell behind. They fell behind pretty big, 24-7, and they mounted an impressive comeback. I mean, Phillip Rivers threw a couple touchdowns in the fourth, like midway through the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden it's a 3-point game. And they come down, 5 seconds left to go, kicking the game tying field goal to send it to OT. And of course it gets blocked. Of course it gets blocked. Now, like I said, I wasn't watching it this time. That was well past my bedtime. So I'm not going to sit here and say I did watch it. But kind of wish I was. And not just to spite the Spanos family or anything like that. Ha ha ha, the Chargers lost. I mean, yeah, I would have said a tweet. It would have been 2 letters and it would have been 140 characters long. It would have been ha 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 ha. That's all I would be able to do. I mean, in the words of Phillip Rivers, you laugh to keep from crying. I would have been crying tears of joy, I suppose, because I mean, there would have been no doubt. Like, I would have been expecting something like that to happen if I was watching in that moment. But I'd be curious for those of you that are listening that did watch and were watching when that field goal went in, and I'm curious what that felt like for you. Were you hoping that it would get blocked? Were you hoping it'd be wide right? Were you hoping it would make it and extend the game? I don't know. But personally, if I was watching that live at the end of that game, I would have been expecting something wild like that to happen. That's no longer in the minority. Like, that's a majority. That's going to happen. It's more likely that something insane like that at this point would happen to that team. So, I had to answer some people. Like, well, why'd you watch it all? Like, if you felt dirty, like, if you don't care, if you hate the NFL, like, why'd you watch? Well, because work. I mean, if you don't know what I do, I'm a radio producer. I'm a sports radio producer. I have to at least somewhat have an idea of what was going on, because that's what we're going to be talking about in the morning. And so, I did watch the first half. I went to bed at halftime. I really didn't care. It wasn't just because I had to get up early. I could have stayed up and just sucked it up in the morning, but I didn't care. And I kind of hope that that's a trend. Obviously, I'm still going to be watching a little bit. I'm not going to sit here and say that I won't. Gates, Antonio Gates is on the verge of history, and there's going to be a part of me that when Rivers hits Gates for 6, I'm going to, pump my fist a little bit. I'm going to be happy in that moment, just a little bit. I hope it happens on the road, but I don't believe that that's very likely, because I think the Chargers have 3, I'm not going to say home games, I'm going to say games in Los Angeles in a row. I won't say home games because that's not their home. They don't belong there. No, they're not wanted there. And there's going to be, 20,000 people there with half of them rooting for the other team. So I'm not going to call it their home game. But they have 3 games coming up in Los Angeles, 3 in a row. So it's unlikely that Antonio Gates gets that record-setting touchdown on the road. But, I'm going to watch. And I truly believe this. I truly do believe this, that there are obviously fans on both sides of the spectrum here in San Diego. I'm talking more about San Diego Chargers fans. There are fans that said, you know what, I'm loyal to the team. Yeah, they screwed us. I don't like the owner, but I'm loyal to the team. I got this lightning bolt tattooed on me. Like, I'm sticking with them, and that's fine. That's your prerogative. That is your deal. I respect that. I may not agree with it, but I respect it. You're allowed to have that opinion. Absolutely. And on the other hand of things, there are people that are saying, I'm not watching. I did not watch the game. I don't care. Stop talking about them. I'm turning the channel. I hate them. Again, that's your prerogative. That is I respect that. That's your right. Go for it. Do what you want to do. I am certainly not in a position to sit here and try to tell somebody how they should or should not react, or how they should or should not feel, because their team, the team that they've loved for 56 years, no longer exists. I'm just not going to do that. But for me, I'm still going to watch, and I do believe this. Again, I do believe that there are a handful, a good chunk of people that say they don't care, but are still going to be watching, and you can call it hate watching if you want, but that interest will die off. I mean, really, Rivers and Gates are the only two players on that team that have any sentimental value to San Diegans. I mean, how attached did you get to Melvin Gordon? Not very. Joey Bosa, yeah, he's going to be a star in the league, but he's here for 1 year. We're not going to claim him as ours. I mean, maybe you will. I'm not. So once those two guys are gone, Rivers and Gates, and as they kind of fade out, your interest will fade out. That's what I believe, and that's what I think will happen with me. But as far as the game, I'm going to tell you right now, the best part of the night, the best part of the broadcast was the broadcast itself. It was great in the sense that it provided me with the most entertainment. That's how I want to phrase it, because it had good, bad, and downright ugly. And I thought Beth Mowins, she was the good. She was incredible. I was so happy for her to see her call being the first female to call a nationally televised game like that. It was awesome. She is an absolute pro. I had no problem with her being in the booth. She knew what she was talking about. She was on it, and I loved, she posted on Twitter a picture of her before the game. Not a lot of people in the stadium yet, and she walked up to the stands, and she's on the field level, and there was a little girl, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years old, and she's holding a sign that says, "Beth Mowins, I'm ready for my internship." And that was awesome. Beth is a pioneer. She's paving the way for for girls to be able to have a role that for a long time it's been dominated by men. Men have been the play-by-play broadcasters for NFL games. She's done college football, and she was great there, and I was really happy to see her finally kind of break through that glass ceiling and get her shot. That made me happy. I saw some people on Twitter, which that should be all I need to say right there. I saw something on Twitter, because it's going to be hot garbage coming at you. But, there was people talking about, about time the NFL, did something right for women and their image problem. I'm choosing my words carefully. Like, I'm staying away from that. It shouldn't matter if somebody is a woman or a man. If they're qualified, if they're good, let them do the job. That's all that matters. That is all that matters. Quite frankly, I won't be surprised if it comes out in a week or something that the NFL, somebody does some investigative work and we find out that she got paid 75% of what the regular Monday night broadcast crew would get. Wouldn't surprise me. It'd be a horrible thing. It'd be an absolute travesty. And but ask yourself right now, would that surprise you with the NFL? I'm not sure that it would, but I digress. Beth Mowins was great. Best part of the broadcast. Rex Ryan, on the other hand, just brutal, absolutely terrible. He sounded bored out of his mind. He sounded like he was thinking about the buffet in the media kitchen after the game, what he was going to do at halftime. I mean, he sounded disinterested. When he did say something, it wasn't stupid. He knows what he's talking about as far as like the X's and O's, and that is what you want out of your color commentator, but he had no rhythm, he had no life to his words. I don't know what he was doing there, and that was too bad for me. He definitely kind of watered it down, because like I said, Beth Mowins on one hand was great, Rex Ryan, not so great. But then we get Sergio Dip, who I did not know. I hadn't even heard of the guy before Monday night. And when I saw Sergio Dip, I'll play it for you right here.
Beth, Coach, it's a pleasure to be with you guys here on the field from up close, just watching Coach Vance Joseph from here. You watch him now on the screen. This diversity in his background is helping him a lot tonight. Quarterback at Colorado, defensive back in the NFL, and here he is having the time of his life this night, making his head coaching debut.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was a joke. I was scrolling through Twitter or doing something on my laptop, watching the game when this was happening, and I kind of looked up and I go, what is happening right now? And you can only imagine that the Twitter, just social media, absolutely just destroyed this guy. I felt bad for the kid. He's like 28, 29 years old. I felt terrible for him, but at the same time, it's like, what did we just watch? What just happened? He's having the time of his life.
And here he is, having the time of his life.
Now I had the time of my life.
There we go. I love it. All right, a little time of my life. No. Look, this is where I'm going to have the fun. We got the laughs out. And I sure hope that the majority of the criticism and the hot takes on Twitter regarding Sergio Dip were lighthearted, because as it didn't take very long as it came out, he was an ESPN Deportes reporter, okay? He was doing that in his second language. English is not his native language. And I certainly would not feel comfortable doing a live television broadcast on one of the grandest stages of them all, Monday Night Football. I would not be comfortable doing a TV hit in anything other than my native language. So I respect him. Okay, I didn't have a problem with it. It didn't bother me. I noticed ESPN did not go back to him. In fact, I think they told him to go back to the Deportes broadcast right after that hit. They're like, yep, can't do that anymore. But I feel bad for the kid. It was pretty tough to watch. But again, I'm not gonna just sit here and rip the guy for 20 minutes. Like I said, I think that was incredibly difficult for him. He owned it. Unfortunately, by him owning it, there's a video that he posted a couple hours after the game when he got back to the hotel, and he kind of explained it, and I'm not going to lie, it made it worse. He made it worse. He should not have done that. He would have been better off. You know, he had some fun about it. He laughed about it, and was able to put some smiley faces on Twitter and stuff like that, because he knew he was just getting killed. But this video that he posted in response to that, he was starting to get emotional. And he was just, I'm a kid, I'm an immigrant, and on 9/11, on the biggest stage, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, where is this going? And he ended up talking about the two coaches, and I didn't understand where he was going with that. But that's all I have to say on Sergio Dip and him having the time of his life.
Having the time of his life.
Yes, thank you, Sergio. Anyways, back to business here. I am the NFL's bitch. I own that. I'm not happy about it, but I will wear it. So some of my takeaways from the NFL weekend, I'll kind of just go a little rapid fire here. Some things that I took away from what I saw through week one. Beast mode back. Beast mode is back.
Beast mode, love and appreciate that.
Of course, Marshawn, you deserve that. You had a hell of a performance.
Hell yeah.
Raiders went on the road at Tennessee. That was a game that a lot of people were picking Tennessee. A lot of people are big on Tennessee this year. They think they're going to surprise some people. It's not a I told you so, but I did pick Oakland to win. I do weekly picks on the Mighty 1090s website, so I'm not just lying. I picked Oakland to win. I was impressed with Marshawn Lynch. He looked like he didn't miss a beat. He looked like he looked a couple years older than the last time we saw him, but he was still trucking people over. Just running right through people over and over and over again.
Over and over and over and over and over and over and over
and over and over and over again.
And over and over and
just
over
when you start
and
thinking,
over again.
Well, what's he gonna do next? He ran through a face.
Run through a face.
I had to throw that in there. I absolutely love that drop. It's just Marshawn Lynch. He's a national treasure. He really is. He doesn't say a whole lot, but when he does, it's something good. So for Marshawn and for the Raiders, we're going to have to wait and see how he holds up and how the Raiders use him. I imagine they're going to want to use him sparingly because they don't need him so much weeks 1 through 8. They're going to need him weeks 9 through 16 and heading into the playoffs, because the Raiders, I expect to be in the playoff hunt. I expect them to be fighting for a Super Bowl appearance, and so they're going to need Marshawn Lynch. But it was very clear to me, at least through week 1. And again, this is, overreaction podcast. It's always an overreaction, the day or two after some NFL games, but he was not a novelty act. Okay, there was a lot of people that thought, oh, it's just, he's from Oakland, he loves Oakland, this is just, an act of good faith towards the Oakland fans before they move and ship off to Vegas. Not necessarily. This was not a novelty signing. Marshawn Lynch, he still got it. And quite frankly, he was a hell of a lot better than Adrian Peterson as far as running backs, trying to make the second coming of themselves. He's a lot better than AP did on Monday Night Football. So we'll just have to wait and see. Speaking of that Raiders game, it's weird that this was what I noticed the most in football this week. I talked about Beth Mowins and how great she was. Tony Romo, his first game, he was on that Raiders game, and I thought he was pretty damn good. I thought he was very good. A little uncomfortable at times. That's to be expected. I mean, this is a guy that's really never done that before. He's been on the other end of the camera. He's been on the field doing his thing. And so, sometimes when you're there and you're in front of a national audience like that red light comes on, it can be nerve-wracking. I can understand that. And I thought Tony Romo did just fine. He had really good knowledge. He had really good insight. It was almost, quite frankly, it was almost too much. He was breaking down the X's and O's of the plays from a quarterback's perspective, a quarterback with recent experience on the field. This wasn't a guy that, 20 years ago, back in my day, who's, also right after that going to yell at some kids that are stepping on his lawn. That's not Tony Romo. Okay, he was just in the league last year. Well, he didn't really do much last year, but 2 years ago. So he knew what he was talking about. And there was a point, like I said, where I was, okay, you're going to have to explain that. Slow that one down. I didn't quite catch that one. But at the same time, at the end of the day, that's what I like from the color commentators. Just to kind of switch sports and make a comparison, I thought in the World Series last year, John Smoltz was on the call with with what's his name? Joe Buck. And I thought John Smoltz did a great job. The analysis that he brought to the broadcast made it a better experience for me. So that's what I saw from Tony Romo. I really liked it. I thought the best part of all of Sunday, the entire day, the best part was the CBS pregame show. If you missed it, they brought in Tony Romo from the booth. People are still filing into the stadium. It's before the 10 o'clock game starts. And they interview Tony Romo, and all of a sudden Phil Simms, who's back at the studio, used to be sitting in the same chair Tony Romo was. Phil Simms kind of comes into the picture and he just goes, "Hey, Tony." And Tony just starts laughing, kind of looks away from the camera, and he goes, "Hey, Phil, good to hear your voice, man." I swear to God, just like that. and it was hilarious, and it was in good nature. Phil Simms kind of ended up giving him some advice, how's it feel sitting in that chair. I can't say for sure that Phil Simms off the air didn't go back and be like, I should have had that spot in my chair. Can't say one way or the other, but on the air at least, Phil Simms was a good sport about it. Tony Romo was a good sport about it. That made me laugh. That was what I thought was the best part of all of Sunday's NFL coverage. Last in the NFL, Packers and the Seahawks. I thought this was going to be the game of the week. I really did. Turns out I was wrong. I was definitely wrong. I thought Seattle going to Lambeau in Green Bay, I thought those are two teams that are going to be fighting to win the NFC, and it was going to be a great game. And it turns out that was where I took my Sunday nap. All right. Death, taxes, and the big guy taking a Sunday nap. Those are three things that will happen. And I can't predict when I'm going to take that nap, but I'll tell you right now, this week it came in the third quarter of that Packers and Seahawks game. I lost so much interest. It was boring as hell up until that point. Turns out some scoring happened in the second half. I didn't see it. That Seattle offense is atrocious. It is terrible. It hurts to watch at times. That offensive line is just, it's like they pulled 5 guys off the street and gave them Seahawks jerseys. You can hear my dog right now outside just barking at the wind. Daphne, I am recording a podcast. Come on. But anyways, thank you for that interruption. Getting back to it, that offensive line for Seattle, it's terrible. And it's been really bad for a long time. As somebody that used to follow the Seahawks a lot more than I do now, I can attest to this. That line has always been bad ever since Russell Wilson has been in the picture. It's just been like a revolving door of scrubs. And I have never been able to figure that out because this was a team for so long had built their identity as a running team, a power running team with Marshawn Lynch. Why would you not invest into that offensive line? This is a team that has a franchise quarterback, the number one most important position in all of sports. It is the quarterback of an NFL team. You cannot go anywhere without a quarterback. You don't have to have any all-pro wide receivers. You don't have to have the best running game. Your defense can be middle of the road at best. You got to, tighten things up here and there, but you need a quarterback. You need a field general. It's the most important position in sports. So when you have a franchise quarterback, just look at the teams that don't have franchise quarterbacks. Where have they been? You have not seen them come January when the playoffs roll around. You need a franchise quarterback. Seattle has one. Why the hell would you not protect him? Now, I understand they had to pay him, and they had to pay guys on their defense like Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas, and they've they set that path out. They said, we're just going to, that's going to be our area of need because we can't afford to pay much attention to it. You got to figure something out because from what I saw on Sunday against Green Bay, the Seahawks are going nowhere if that's how they're going to play. Defense only allowed, I think, 19 points, something like that. Defense didn't play terrible. You give up, I think it was 19. You give up 19 to Aaron Rodgers on the road, I'd say that's nothing to hang your heads about. But they only put up 3 field goals. That was all they could muster. It was ugly, and Seattle's going to have a long way to go if that's how they're going to play. Hopefully they bounce back. We'll have to wait and see. But I thought Rodgers and I thought the Packers, they looked pretty damn good. Seattle, as much as I'm ripping their offense, they have a great defense still. They still have Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor and Richard Sherman on that field. Michael Bennett doing his thing. They just got Sheldon Richardson. That's still a really, really good defense. And I didn't see a whole lot of struggle from Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in that game. That was my pick for the Super Bowl. I picked the Packers to go to the Super Bowl. But if they play like that all year, they won't just get there. They will win the Super Bowl. So those are just what I took away from week 1 of the NFL as the self-proclaimed bitch of the NFL. There it is. I'll wear it. I'll say it. But switching over to college football again, this is way more entertaining for me than the NFL, at least so far this season. College football through 2 weeks has been outstanding, and I think a big credit to that is the college football playoffs. All right, a lot of these teams, guys, powerhouse schools like Bama, Michigan, Ohio State, Clemson, they were able to kind of just schedule a bunch of cupcakes in their non-conference schedule, tune-up games, roll to an undefeated record in the non-conference. Not necessarily the case anymore. You can get away with 1 or 2 of those, but you're going to have to schedule. You're going to have to build that resume. You're going to have to schedule some top-tier teams. And because of that, the people that benefit from that are us, the fans, the consumers. Florida State and Alabama week 1, that was like the highest rated opening, like week 1 game since the AP poll began, 1 versus 3. It was a great game. And ended up being a tough watch for Florida State fans when Francois goes down and they just weren't able to climb back from that. But we have had some really good games. And I want to start, at least for my college football coverage, with San Diego State. They came away with a big road win versus ASU. I tip my cap to the Aztecs. Now, I didn't think they would lose that game. I think that was a game that they should have won. They ended up being underdogs, just barely. It was essentially a pick'em game because, as far as betting lines go and Vegas and all that, the home team usually gets 3 points. You get home, you get 3 points just because you're playing at home. And I think the line was 3.5 points. So it was essentially a coin flip. But I thought San Diego State was the better team. Even though ASU has the better funding, they're in the Pac-12. Yes, that is true. But San Diego State was just the better team. They should have won that game. Arizona State's terrible. Okay, they've finished at the bottom of the Pac-12 for the last couple of years now. It's not like they went up to Washington and won on the road. It's not like they beat USC, okay? But nonetheless, anytime a Mountain West team can beat a Power 5 school like that, it's somewhat of a big deal. And Rashad Penny absolutely put his name on the map nationally. We all knew what he could do here in San Diego. He was great last year. He was just behind a guy who broke the all-time NCAA rushing record in Donnell Pumphrey, all right? But Rocky Long has said it already. He said it in the offseason. He got more calls from NFL scouts regarding Rashad Penny than he did Donnell Pumphrey. Rashad Penny is going to be playing on Sundays. Mark my words. That I promise you. All right, Donnell Pumphrey, he ended up being a healthy scratch in week 1. A lot of Philadelphia Eagles fans were wondering why they kept the guy. He's just small. I don't know what his career, I don't know how he's going to pan out. I don't know if he's going to figure it out and become a Darren Sproles type player. I don't know, but I do know Rashad Penny, he is going to be playing on Sundays. He's the best returner in college football. All right, he busted off yet another 99-yard kickoff return against Arizona State. He's easily one of the top running backs in the country, if not the best running back in the country right now. I think he's second in rushing yards so far. But the guy put up over 200 on the ground. He had a ton of all-purpose yards. He is incredible, and San Diego State will go as far as he goes. And for right now, that means they have a number 19 Stanford coming in on Saturday. Big matchup. Now, I don't think San Diego State will win. I sure hope I'm wrong. But if I was a betting man, I would put Stanford to win that game. Stanford's a top-tier Pac-12 school. San Diego State, that would be absolutely monumental if they were able to win that game. And I hope it happens. I hope I'm wrong. I will have no problem coming back next week and saying, I was wrong. You know, I will be so happy about that because it meant San Diego State is 3-0. And that would be huge. I mean, they'll absolutely be in the top 25. And now all of a sudden, people are starting to turn their heads and notice the black and red here in the little southwest corner of the country. But I ended up watching USC and Stanford over the weekend. That was one game that I talked about last week and how I was conflicted because, I've kind of been like a USC fan, like a closet USC fan for my whole life. So I want them to go to the college football playoff. I want them to win, as much as they possibly can this year. But I'm conflicted because, if Stanford wins, then that's a top 10 team coming to San Diego to play the Aztecs. Well, as I was watching the game, I decided, naturally, I figured out what I really wanted, and I ended up wanting Stanford to win. My San Diego State, my black and red blood, it got the best of me, and while I said on the last podcast that I was conflicted, I was rooting for Stanford to win. USC had control of that game really start to finish. It just didn't happen. So I don't expect Stanford to come in and lose to the Aztecs. I can't see how the Aztecs win. I mean, if they fall behind, which is very possible to a team like Stanford, I have no confidence that they can come back, pull themselves out of that hole because I have zero. I mean, I was going to say like 5 or 10%. No, I got zero confidence in Christian Chapman. I mean, he doesn't have to do much in this offense. He's just got to find Rashad Penny. But if we get into a point where he needs to throw some bombs and we got to ride Christian Chapman's arm out of a hole against a talented team like Stanford, it ain't happening. I have seen nothing out of him in the last 2 years to lead me to believe that would happen. So I expect it to be a good game. I don't expect it to be a blowout for either team, I suppose. And I hope I'm wrong. But if I had to, gun to my head, or if I had to put down money, I'd have to put it down on Stanford. But again, over the weekend, there were some great games. Oklahoma beating Ohio State. Baker Mayfield, just an absolute power move. Grab a dictionary. Go to the library. Find an old Webster's dictionary. Don't go to urbandictionary.com. Don't type it in. I'm talking, go grab a book and go to power move. Under the P section, there will be a picture of Baker Mayfield and what he did on Saturday against Ohio State. This is on the road. They're in the horseshoe. And after Oklahoma State pulls off the upset, he is running around the field, waving the Oklahoma flag, Boomer Sooner, and just stakes it into the ground at midfield. Well, he tried to. Baker Mayfield, he learned a tough lesson that you can't stake a flag into AstroTurf. it's not grass. It's not the way it works. And it kind of just bounced off and fell down. But either way, that was a boss move by Baker Mayfield, and that made me happy when I saw that. And so Oklahoma, they look outstanding so far through the season. They absolutely look like a national title contender. Clemson, they're rolling. They're another team that's going to be in the Final Four, barring major injuries or major setbacks. They beat Auburn this weekend. And then the last game that I watched was the nightcap. It ended up ending after the San Diego State ASU game, was Boise State and Washington State. And this was another game that I talked about on episode 53 of the Rinder Report, where I was a little conflicted. Did I want Boise State to win because that's good for the Mountain West? It's, Mountain West school beating a Pac-12 school. It makes that matchup between the Broncos and the Aztecs in October even bigger. Or do I want Washington State to win because, I grew up liking Washington State and I hate Boise State more than any other school in the country. I do not like them. I don't like Boise State. And that game, I definitely ended up siding with my hatred for Boise State more than my affection for the Mountain West. I just did not find myself rooting for Boise State. And Mike Leach and the Cougars, they were down big, and they made an incredible comeback. Luke Falk, their quarterback, goes down, and it's looking like Boise State's running away with this game. And Washington State is able to come back. They're able to force overtime. It goes to double or triple overtime before Washington State finally comes away with the win. A very close, narrow win at home, but a win nonetheless. Boise State, you suck. End of conversation. So that's what I got. That's all I got for the for the podcast. Football, like I said, it drives the ship. It's what I'm going to be following the most here, at least until the playoffs really start to come into the picture in baseball. I will say, I think it's incredible what we're seeing right now on two sides of the spectrum. On one side, the Cleveland Indians, when this podcast is being recorded, they're currently going for their 20th straight win. I sure hope I'm not jinxing them by talking about them right now, but as of the second that this is being recorded on Tuesday, September 12th, Cleveland has won 19 straight games. That is amazing. That is historical. They're chasing the Oakland A's record. And what was it? The year Billy Beane and Brad Pitt and those guys, 2002. I think they won 22 straight games that summer. Cleveland's pushing for it. And then on the other side of things, this is ugly what we were seeing in Los Angeles. And I know this is making a ton of Padres fans happy, but Dodgers have lost 11 in a row. They were the best team in baseball all season long. They've lost 16 out of 17. They just, for a while, you're like, okay, it's a slump. Everybody goes through it. This is no longer a slump. This is a crisis. All right. Playoffs are in just a couple of weeks away. And this is a team that just cannot win a game. They cannot find a way to win. Now, it's entirely possible that they turn it around, they figure things out, they bolster that starting rotation, offense comes back to life, and then all of a sudden they're back in the conversation to go to the World Series. That totally could happen. But it hasn't happened yet. This team, I don't know if they just fell asleep, took the foot off the gas, and thought we're so far ahead in the division, it doesn't matter, we're going to be coasting. They look terrible right now. And it's just, Sports Illustrated, like a month ago, earlier this summer, they had a cover come out that had, I think it was Justin Turner being drenched in Gatorade right on the cover, and in big bold letters said best team ever. This is a team that was challenging the 1908 and the 2001 Mariners for 116 wins, the most in regular season history. They were on pace to challenge that record, and now that's certainly out of the question. But they just need to win a game. They forget about winning 100 games. They need to win a game, and I just think that is insane what's going on in Major League Baseball. And the only other thing that's on my radar in baseball, again, I've kind of tuned out for the Padres for the most part. Still watching, still following. But Giancarlo Stanton, he's on pace to hit 61 home runs. And I talked about him a couple weeks ago and how he was kind of, to me at least, seemed like he was flying under the radar. And the fact that he was just on this absolute tear this season and going to have the best season since the steroid era in terms of home run production. And so he is on pace to hit 61, and I think that is something that I will be paying attention to throughout these last couple weeks of the regular baseball season. So that's going to do it for me. One quick programming note. I will be doing a guest spot on a podcast this week. So again, this podcast coming out Tuesday night, September 12th. So maybe by the time you're hearing this, I can say it's still to come. Maybe by the time you're listening to this podcast, I will say go check it out because it's already out. I don't know when you're consuming this podcast, but I do thank you for listening, and I wanted to make the note. I will be on with the guys from The Kept Faith and the Voice of San Diego podcast. So Dallas and Nick, they're a friend of the podcast, friend of the show. We had Nick on a few episodes ago, and we were talking about the Padres and the tank and Padres Twitter and all of that. So they invited me to be a guest on their podcast coming up this week. I'm looking forward to that. It'll be fun to talk a little bit of baseball. I think we said we were going to talk about the Chargers and San Diego's feelings on the Chargers. So go to follow them. Follow at The Kept Faith on Twitter. You can find them on Instagram. They're on Facebook. Subscribe to their podcast. Definitely be on the lookout for that. I will be retweeting that and all of that as well. It'll be up on at least the link will be up on my website. As far as my stuff goes, you can follow me on Twitter at Paul Reindl SD. You can go to thereindlreport.com to get this podcast and any other podcast and interview that I've done. It's all right there for you. And of course, please go to iTunes and subscribe. Look, I'm trying to build the brand, okay? Trying to take out Jim Rome. Just kidding. It's not going to happen. But this is mostly for fun, but that does not mean that I still don't want to build the brand. So I can say this at the end of every podcast like I do, but it's going to ultimately come down on you. Share, retweet. Let somebody know about the podcast if you enjoyed it. Subscribe on iTunes. This is something that I say every week, and it's just my shameless plug. But if you go to iTunes, if you haven't already subscribed, all you got to do is find the podcast app on your phone. It's the purple microphone. If you have an iPhone, type in the Reindl Report, hit subscribe, and what that does is every time that I post a podcast within an hour, I think it takes about 45 minutes, it will upload to iTunes, and you will get a notification if it's set up that way for you, that it's telling you, hey, new podcast available. It's already on your phone, and you can listen to it that way. Also, go ahead, feel free, if you feel so inclined, to leave me a comment on iTunes, because supposedly, we talk about building the brand, that's how it works. People leaving comments. If it's positive, negative, I really don't care. I would like it all. In fact, I like the constructive criticism. If you're just going to come up there and blast me like, trolls on Twitter, go for it. It's not going to bother me. It's not going to hurt my feelings. But if that's what makes you feel better about yourself, go for it. But I sincerely do appreciate the feedback. What you liked, what you didn't like. What do you want to hear more of? What do you never want to hear again? Let me know. So that's all I've got for episode 54 of the Reindl Report. Again, keep an eye out for The Kept Faith this week. I will be on their podcast coming up here in just a couple of days. I will be out, so I will see you next week. Have another podcast. I do want to thank you guys for tuning in. Again, ReindlReport.com, The Reindl Report on iTunes. You can follow me and communicate with me on Twitter at Paul Reindl SD. So until next week, I will talk to you guys then.